Lovely. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Jakub Nowakowski. I'm the director of the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center. And first of all, thank you all for joining us wherever you are in the world. It is deeply moving to know that tonight we are connected across the continents, countries, time zones, and united by this shared commitment to memory, education, and human dignity. On behalf of the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center and our valued partners, the Holocaust and Genocide Centers in Johannesburg and Durban, I warmly welcome each of you to this special online screening. And this event is organized by all the three centers, and our collaboration here in South Africa reflects a shared belief that remembrance must transcend geography and that education is the strongest when we stand together. And although I have the privilege of introducing this evening, this film is the result of the dedication of many individuals and institutions whose commitment made it possible. So let me mention those names and those organizations as we remain profoundly grateful for their support. So I'd like to thank David Alpert and his family, David Emil and Ines Gimbel and their family, Emily and Ines Gimbel and their family, and the National Fund of the Republic of Austria for Victims of Nationalism, National Socialism. And this is the belief of those people and organizations that made this project possible. We also wish to acknowledge other partners who enrich this work, the Association for the Memory of Auschwitz, based in France, the Memorial de la Shoah, also based in France, Air France, the Embassy of France in Pretoria, the French Cultural Institute, and the French Consulate in Cape Town. It is their support throughout different stages of this program that helped to carry this project to its completion. And finally, last but not least, I would also like to recognize the excellent film director, Sean O'Sullivan. But at the very center of this evening and of that story stands Hélène Joffe and her family. And I'll not talk about Helene's history because you'll learn about that through the film. But let me just say that Helene's courage in sharing her testimony, not once, but again and again with students and audiences, is an act of extraordinary generosity. To allow one's most painful memories to become part of the public record is no small decision. It requires trust, it requires strength, it requires faith that memory matters. So this film, in that sense, is not only about the past, it is also about responsibility in the present. In this time marked by rising anti-Semitism, distortion of history, and the dangerous simplification of complex truths, survivors' testimony remains one of the most powerful forms of resistance. When survivors speak, they affirm not only what happened, but what it must never be allowed to happen again. And so through this film, the members of Helene's family who were killed during the Holocaust are restored to memory as individuals, as lives lived, loved, and taken. So we are honored that Hélène is joining us online this evening. She will be supported by her close friends and our head of education here at the center, Oli Barnett. After the screening, Hélène will be taking questions. So please feel free to write your questions in the chat during the film, and we will try to return to them in the discussion that will follow. I'm also pleased that from March, this film will be available free of charge as an education resource on our YouTube channel. So please stay tuned for more information and the links on our website or newsletters. And finally, please note that this program is being recorded. So if at any time you will want to come back to it, it will also be available on Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center YouTube channel. So finally, thank you for being with us tonight, for choosing to listen, to remember, and to care. We're truly, truly grateful for your presence. So now let us start the film, and Hélène Joffe will be there after it ends to answer any questions you may have. Once again, thank you so much for joining us.
My family story is the history of the 20th century. My grandfather went from Vienna to Russia to the court of the Tsar. They settled in the Crimea. Then came the revolution. My father was in the White Army. They had to run away to France. I was born in Marseille in 1934. At home, we were not allowed to talk during meals, and I hated soup. And every plate of soup I had with tears, because he had his serviette round and he didn't need to say anything. I would eat my soup. Also, he used to take me Sunday morning to walk along the harbour. He was very, very loving. I remember that day particularly because I was in the shop with my father and people start to scream, "War." And soon after, the bombs coming. It was a whole series of things that happened. First, don't forget that France was cut in half. We were free for a while before Paris. Therefore, we already lived with knowledge. Otherwise, my parents spoke, but they spoke in Russian at home. I didn't understand. As soon as the Germans came into Paris, my parents had lots of friends in Paris. They came, lots of them. In fact, everybody was trying to get to Marseille, to escape to Portugal, Spain, or even manage to get a boat to England or to America. But that was terribly difficult. But everybody came to Marseille. No wonder they knew where to collect the Jews. The conditions were starting to become horrible. Food started to become very scarce. The cellar people were selling black market goods.
Innocent victims in a great nation's tragedy. Bread made from American flour, part of a Red Cross mercy cargo, brings relief and rejoicing in a country stripped of everything by its enemies. In some 400 schools like this throughout unoccupied France, 50,000 children are fed daily by American Quakers, soup, to help ease memories of hungry days and nights of horror. An added precaution, vitamins to foster resistance to the starvation the Nazi war machine sentenced them to face. And grateful youngsters they are, while their own leaders collaborate with the conquerors who plunder their country. The children of France send thanks to friends across the sea.
That little girl, it shows you the hairstyle. That's what I had, a little roll on top of my head. It's incredible. So we all looked alike. I could have been that little girl. I remember the day the Germans marched into Marseille. I can still hear the noise of the boots.
Marjorie and I, my wife, were transferred to the American Friends Service Committee office in Marseille. Yes, you had some very bad situations in France. And the relief organizations, the Jewish organizations, obviously first began to pick up information that there was some sort of a deportation action in the making.
But even then, my father was not afraid. He was a proud Frenchman. He always said, "In France, I sleep with my windows open."
Myself and the man who headed the Quaker organization, a man named Noble at that time in Marseille, to Vichy, I guess it was 1942, to try to get at Marshal Pétain, the first instance, although really more Laval. This was in one of the big old hotels in Vichy, Hotel du Parc or something. As we walked down the corridor, we saw Laval along with Ménétral and some others at the far end of the corridor. I wrote at the time that I felt it'd be stretching a point to say that we were allowed to present our plea in any sort of coherent fashion. Well, rather than a discussion, this was really, we listened to a monologue delivered by Laval, which consisted of a tirade against the Jews, particularly the foreign Jews in France. He took the categoric stand that these people were undesirable elements, a source of anti-government propaganda, black market practice, communistic activity, etc., etc. And he then continued on the vein in an interrogatory tone that if the government of the United States was so pro-Semitic, why hadn't we taken these people in instead of merely criticizing the French for not treating them properly? How many Jews did we have anyway? If you like them so much, take them. And I can remember Laval, something that I did not record in here, saying, in order to protect our own French Jews, we're giving them the foreign Jews first. Of course, they got everybody in the end.
It's incredible. I've never seen that. I was a small child. I couldn't have, but I was there. Who gave him the right to decide to kill a whole generation and be praised for it? How happy everybody is. Relaxed. It's incredible. It's amazing. Without the French police, the Germans would never have been able to do it. She told my father to go and hide in the shop. And I remember we were all sitting around the table. And my father came back. He said to her, I couldn't hide because if I wasn't there, they would have taken you and the children. He had given his wedding ring to my oldest brother and his gold watch. And I remember very clearly. He went down the stairs, following. Downstairs were the Germans, but upstairs were the French police. Actually, I realized I never said goodbye to him. It's only lately that I realized I never said goodbye. J'aime la France, c'est mon pays. Mais je n'oublierai jamais que c'est là, les Français, la police française et les collaborateurs, la milice, qui ont arrêté mon père. They took him to Drancy in Paris and then to Sobibor extermination camp in Poland. It was the 24th of January 1943. At 6 o'clock the next morning, cars with an alarm come down and carry whatever you can. The scene was surreal. Some old people with chickens in cages, cats, dogs, whatever they could carry. And we were told to assemble in that square where I wanted to be 80 years later. It was the most incredibly happy moment of my life, because I so much wanted to go back and feel triumphant that I was there 80 years later. For me it was incredible, very strong, powerful, not the little girl anymore. I can tell you, I was very powerful. Well, in the square, people, more and more, when they came down, we were pushed one against the other, squashed. What I had carried was my doll. It slipped off my hand and somebody tramped over my doll and squashed it. Actually, I felt I had lost suddenly everything. And it was like my baby was killed and my childhood. When we were told to march to the station, there men and women were separated in the trucks, and from there we were taken to the camp, transit camp Fréjus, not knowing anything, where we were going, what was happening. Fréjus was dreadful. My brother Michel and Léon were put in one of those trains going directly to the camps, and Michel pushed Léon out. I don't know how he did it, but he was amazing. He was right through the wall, incredible. And they joined the French resistance. When we were told by an officer, you may leave the camp if you've got a place to go. So we marched through to show our papers, stamped Jews, and the officer looked at my mother, my little brother and I, and my sister, examined us, turned the paper hide, and said, go. He couldn't imagine that a Jew would have blue eyes and blonde hair. So in his doubt, he let us pass. Incredible but true. We hid in many places. Friends helped us. And by then, we had different papers, no more Jew, different name. And in fact, one day, a woman said to me, what's your name, little girl? Now, my name is my name, but I had forgotten that I had another name. So she slapped me a few times, and then afterwards she said to me, you will not forget that you no more Hélène Mandel. Yes, I was. Hélène is French. Arnaud. I had different papers organized by the French resistance. About a year later, we were living in a village outside Marseille. Someone informed on us. We were betrayed. We had to leave that night. It was always at night. And then the members of the resistance realized we've got to be separated now. My sister joined the resistance. She became an agent and carried letters and arms across France. They took my mother somewhere, and my brother and I were taken to a little village in the Alps. And that's where I spent the rest of the war with my brother. I can't even explain what I felt, but we had been looking the whole afternoon, and when I found it completely different to what I had in my head. When I was there the first time, don't forget, I saw it with childish eyes. Now I saw it quite different, oldish eyes. I was overwhelmed by the excitement to have found that place. Quite incredible. It's a miracle that we found the place. The house itself is dying. To me, first of all, it looked very small. But when I lived there, it looked huge. I remembered there was a cellar, and I said to them, there was a flood in that cellar when I was there. They said, yes, there it is. And I had a feeling that déjà vu. It was like I was meant to find that place. I am with my little 4-year-old brother sent with strange people in an area which is the headquarters of the French underground. So I'm now a little mother, but my brother is still a baby. All the farmers knew I was there, but they never told the Germans.
The secret operation is a secret no longer. This is the beginning of the liberation of southern France. The victorious drive that blasted the Nazis from Marseille and Toulon started with the American sky troops in that field below.
But the streets are a no man's land, as French Senegalese mop up Nazis that still resist.
At the end of the war, when Marseille was fighting for its liberation, Michel fought for 3 days and 3 nights in the fountain in the center of Marseille called Castellane, and he was nicknamed the Madman of Castellane because he never stopped shooting. He was wounded in his arm, but recovered. And there, big American lorries with soldiers, a crowd of women, everybody screaming, the Americans throwing vitamin chocolate and chewing gum, which I found totally disgusting, and I've never had a chewing gum ever again. It was incredible experience.
Troops of General de Gaulle's forces first to enter the city, fighting Frenchmen setting free their own people. After 4 years, the French are giving the orders. Victory parade of the FFI, nicknamed the Marquis. The people of France can well be proud of them. Allied tanks in the streets, Allied flags flying above a free France.
After the liberation, when I joined my mother, my family in Marseille, my mother took me every day to the station to see the people that were deported to come down the train. My father, I don't know what happened. To this day, I hate stations and trains. My mother never married again. I can look at all that now and not cry anymore. I think when I started to get them out from the pile, it was terrible for me.
I always knew that Mom had suffered something horrendous. I was very, very close to my mother. But I always knew intrinsically in my heart there had been things that were not right. It's actually going to make me cry. I think I've always known it. And that's the honest truth. I think I've lived with it all my life. I think I've always got it. But did I intellectually get it? Did I have facts and figures? No. But intrinsically, intuitively, viscerally, on a soul level, I've always known it.
Mom never spoke, is my sense of it. So very much as a young child, I was aware something had happened. Clearly, Mom had come from France, and I knew that my grandfather had gone to the concentration camps, but I didn't know Mom's story. I didn't know that Mom was a hidden child. I certainly didn't know the details. I didn't know where my grandfather had been killed. I didn't know how he had been killed. It just wasn't something we talked about. And to be honest, the thing that I always remember was that my dad would say, "Don't upset your mom. Don't upset your mom."
The French Republic pays a tribute to you by bestowing upon you the highest distinction of the French Republic, the Legion of Honor.
It feels right, but too late. It should have helped at the time. Okay, better late than never, but on that square there is a monument declaring the French government responsibility, and that is better than nothing. Some countries never did that.
Hat sich in Deutschland eine Umwälzung vollzogen.
I can't forgive the Nazi, but if you say I forgive the Germans, it's another story. Because not all Germans were Nazis. No, I can't forgive the Nazi intellectual. No. I will never forget. Today I can speak to you because I think I'm two people. The child that was and the woman I have become. It did happen, and I have to tell, because there are so many people that step over it and don't believe in it. Our stories, mine and many, many others, are the proof that it did happen. I believed that I survived many things in my life to talk about it. And to talk is not to talk to older people, but to talk to the youth, hoping they, in the future, will stop fighting and wars. Maybe it will happen, I hope. But I believe in it. I believe so strongly that I will continue till the end.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this very, very moving screening, the documentary of Helene's life, I Never Said Goodbye. I've watched this film a number of times alongside Hélène, and I think I can say for both of us that it remains something that is highly emotional and very moving. And we would like to thank Hélène for joining us tonight. Every time Hélène is sharing her story with the world through the documentary, or whether it is meeting many, many, many school groups across the Western Cape, every time you do that, you are bringing a light to us and sharing your story with the world and giving us the opportunity to be witnesses and torchbearers of this history. So we would like to thank the audience, numbering at least 130 people with us this evening. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share this story across the world and to support Hélène. We'd like to remind you that we have the opportunity to ask Hélène questions about her life or about the making of this documentary. So please feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat button below to ask your question about Hélène's life before, during, or after the war. And we will try and answer all the questions. So Hélène, I would like to start. And we'd like to acknowledge our filmmaker, Sean O'Sullivan, who's been working with the Centre since its inception in the mid-1990s. Sean was instrumental in finding the incredible archival footage that you saw in the film, and also being part of a very long and extensive interview process with Hélène in English and also in French. We have enough footage to make a feature-length film, and tonight we'll be touching on just part of the story. So I would like to start by asking one of the questions that I find very fascinating. In the film, Hélène says, "We were betrayed and we had to flee." And it was a turning point in Helene's story because she had to be separated from her mother. She had already been separated from her older brothers, and at this point, she was also separated from her mother and elder sister. Hélène, could you please tell us a little bit about the story of when you were betrayed?
Well, I went to school in that little village, and I befriended a little girl who said to me, "You know, I'm Jewish." It felt like a bubble burst, and I could tell her, "So am I." And of course, she was not Jewish. The parents must have asked her, "Find out who that family is." And of course, the member of the resistance came and told us, it is time that you go separately and hide in the mountain.
At that point, Hélène's family had been living under false identities in a town in France occupied by the German cavalry, which I can imagine by itself was terrifying enough. Now Hélène was separated from her mother and went into the mountains with the French resistance, in charge of looking after her baby brother, Armand. And you yourself, Hélène, were only about 8 or 9 years old.
Yes.
In the village in the mountain, which is also depicted in the film, because 80 years after the deportation of the Jews of Marseille, Hélène decided that she would like to return to the site of the deportation at the port of Marseille, and also had the amazing luck of finding the house in which she was hidden towards the end of the war before liberation, which you see depicted in the film. Hélène, what you might want to add is some of the experiences that you had living as a little girl in hiding in the mountains with the French resistance. What are some of the tasks that you had to do?
Well, first of all, the minute I walked in, I said I didn't invent the story. It's true. Of course, they gave me jobs to do. Go and fetch water in the river, because there was no water in the house. Go and do the washing. And I only remember winter. The river was frozen. I had to break the ice. I had to put traps to catch wild rabbit and go and get their little body. And my love in life is animals. And it was really terrible. Carry bunches of wood on my back, cut little trees, and go and walk 3 k's away to get some milk at the farm. But I did that naturally. In fact, that little girl, I can't believe how she acted. 2 people without emotion, just do.
And I think, Hélène, some of the physical and emotional experiences that you had, you still carry today in your body.
Definitely. I've got IBS, irritable bowel, and the doctor said, well, you know, all the traumas are trapped in your body.
As well as back pain and so on.
Back pain and neck pain, everything.
And one of the things you had to do was to look after your baby brother and effectively become a mother. Can you tell us what happened when you looked after him?
Well, when the Germans were fighting with the resistance members, they used to take my little brother and I in caves, very famous caves, and give us some blankets and a bit of food and said, don't come out until we come and fetch you. But he used to be so scared, but I used to tell him, you know, the fairies live in that cave. And I believed it. So we're safe. And we were safe. They did look after us.
One of the questions from the audience is, who were the people that looked after you from the resistance?
The people, the old couple, were the in-law of the chief of the resistance called Alphonse Dumais. He was the top man in that area. And my brother Michel was his lieutenant.
And another question, this couple looked after you and your brother, and we actually have some photographs of Hélène after liberation with her remaining family and this family who looked after her as their own. There's a question from the audience to tell us a little bit about the experiences of your elder siblings who joined the resistance.
Well, they, each one, my sister took arms and papers across France, walking under bombs and great danger. Both my brothers were fighting, doing all kinds of things, blowing breaches. They never really told me the details.
And your brother Michel fought right to the end.
Yes, all three fought right till the end. But my brother Michel was taken by a sort of madness of killing and fighting because they took my father.
One of the questions from the audience is, aside from your father, who is your immediate family, are you aware of any other family members who perished in the Holocaust from your family?
Yes. Of course, my grandparents, who were in Lithuania, were all taken, made to dig holes or ditches and shot them in the ditches. And uncles, cousin, both my old grandparents. Lots of cousins were killed. I don't know how many because I had no contact with them.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about why the film, why the title is I Never Said Goodbye?
I was sitting with Sean and I suddenly realized something that came to my soul. I never said goodbye to my father because it was customary with my parents to come in and out and kissing them hello and goodbye. And this time he turned towards the door, never looked back, and I never said goodbye. And Sean thought that was apt.
Absolutely. I think a lot of what comes through in the film is the story of the Holocaust through the eyes of a child. This idea that your doll and losing your doll signified the end of your childhood for you.
Yes. Well, you carry whatever you can, and that was my precious baby. And people were like crazy. So they pushed me, and my doll broke, and somebody stamped over it and completely squashed it. I didn't even cry. Actually felt part of me had died with it.
And Hélène, 80 years later, you were able to return to that same square where that happened, where you were deported in January of 1943. What made you feel that you wanted to go back?
Well, I just wanted to prove that they did not win. I was there 80 years later in the same place and looking around, nothing changed, but I was there.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank some of our former colleagues at the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center.
Please.
Namely, Linda Hackner, the former longstanding education director at the Cape Town Holocaust and Genocide Center, who was instrumental in helping Hélène to return to her story after decades of silence, and was instrumental in helping Hélène speak to school groups before she retired. And also, of course, our former director, Mr. Richard Friedman, who now serves as the chairman of our board of trustees. It was Richard who made it possible for Hélène, along with the French consulate, to return to France and to film her experiences there. Hélène, one of the questions from the audience is, how did you decide to come to South Africa after the war? And did your siblings follow you?
No. My mother's brother lived in Cape Town, and when he heard he found out that my mother had survived, he came to Marseille. I was 15, and he said, when you get your degree, your teaching degree, I will send you a ticket to meet your family in Cape Town, which he did. Wow, I don't know how I did it. It was very brave of that young girl. But I came, I met my husband, and I remained in Cape Town. And I'm still here. And I love Cape Town.
One of the things that you love doing, Hélène, is being in nature. And that's been something that's been a feature of your life from when you were small. Can you tell us what it was like as a kid to grow up in France, being in nature with your family?
Well, I was very much a lonely child because my parents didn't allow me to play in the street. And I used my imagination, and I used it all my life. I used it to survive. I used to be happy. Try it. It works.
Absolutely. What did your parents tell you about hiking when you were a child?
Oh, my parents, every weekend, the whole family went walking, hiking around, climbing in Marseille. And I was about 3 or before my little brother was born. Actually, they said to me, Hélène, you come, but you walk. We won't carry you. I said, I walk. And goodness me, I was a hiker and a climber.
And you have been for most of your life?
All my life, yes. Not anymore, though.
So you hike upstairs at the French school and many other schools to visit learners. Can you tell us a little bit of the experience for you of what it's been like to share your story across Cape Town with students who are mostly 15 or 16 years old? More recently, we visited Herzliya High School, where Hélène served as a French teacher. She taught there for 30 years and was able to go back this week to tell her story to the high school. What has it been like to share your story with young people?
First of all, I love young people. That was my life all the time. I still communicate with some of them all over the world. And it's no use talking to old people. They've got their own ideas already. But if you tell a child something good, they might hear you. And I don't mean just they might listen. And maybe it will work. There are no more wars and fighting and killing.
I think that's echoed by one of our comments. Myra Jacobs writes, thank you, Madame Joffe. Your testimony made the archival material even more heartbreaking. Thank you for your educational work with the youth to try and prevent similar atrocities.
It is something I believe in. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute honor. As mentioned, this will be recorded, and you're very welcome to return to the recording and share it near and far. If anyone would like to be in touch with Madame Joffe, please feel free to email us at the Holocaust Center, admin@holocaust.org.za, and the details are on our website. We would be delighted to provide more resources. We will also be developing lesson plans around the film and archival and testimony footage. And we hope that more and more people will be able to access this part of history and learn about the themes of resistance, resilience, survival, and rebuilding. So thank you once again for joining us, and have a good evening.
Thank you.